Not all transactions are created equal, but you don't really grasp that until you've been doing them for a while. That's the topic of this video. Early in your career, every purchase looks the same. Money goes out, something comes in, job done. But over time, you learn that the world of procurement divides neatly into two categories: coconut deals and everything else. A coconut deal is exactly what it sounds like. You walk into a store, see a coconut with a price tag, and decide whether to buy it. A coconut is a coconut. The transaction ends at the checkout. Some goods work this way even when they're big-ticket items. Structural steel for a building, for instance, might cost millions, but as long as it meets the specification, passes inspection, and shows up on time, your involvement ends. Steel doesn't need firmware updates. It doesn't require a charger. It won't stop working because somebody in California pushed a software upgrade overnight. These are the rare, blessed moments in procurement where life is simple. Everything beyond coconuts, that's where things get messy. Sticky deals, as I call them, don't end at the moment of purchase. They begin there. Sometimes it's pernicious. You buy a handful of vehicles. Simple. But practically, you cannot stock uncommon spares from different manufacturers if these vehicles are part of a fleet. So, initial purchase limit options for subsequent ones. If something moves, eventually it stops moving. The buyer becomes responsible not only for the item, but for its future. You now need a meaningful warranty, guaranteed availability of spare parts, reasonable future pricing for those parts, clarity on who repairs it and how. If the OEM, at what price? The consequences of ignoring this can be spectacular. Example: Everett Transit, Washington, 2017 to 2025. Everett bought early generation Proterra buses. After repeated component failures and the inability to source replacement parts post-bankruptcy, the city decided to sell the electric buses at a loss and spend more than $2 million reactivating old diesel units. Their green fleet effectively reverted to diesel. The moral: if the vendor's business model collapses, so does yours. Maintenance and expertise. Is knowledge included? Machines don't repair themselves. People do. And those people need training, manuals, diagnostic software, credentials, access to proprietary tools. A purchase that seems simple can turn sticky if the vendor controls the knowledge. Example: fire departments. Several small municipalities across North America have run into situations where modern emergency trucks required proprietary software or passwords just to perform routine diagnostics. Without them, even well-maintained equipment becomes a 4-ton paperweight. Some departments have had to tow trucks hundreds of kilometers for service the local team used to be able to perform. Services? Buying a promise, not a thing. Services are inherently sticky because they happen later. To one degree or another, you pay progressively today for something delivered tomorrow. Or maybe. Half a coconut is still coconut. Half a haircut is 100% useless. That's why service scopes, milestones, and acceptance criteria matter. They're the anchor in a transaction that otherwise floats in the future. Technology, the stickiest of all. Technology isn't just sticky, it's adhesive. It bonds to your entire organization, and once you've committed, it can be harder to remove than epoxy from carpet. The questions multiply. Is the software compatible with our hardware? Will it still be compatible next year? What happens when the vendor updates? Do we get API access? Are integrations allowed under the license? Do we receive documentation, or does that cost extra? When these questions aren't answered, you get headlines like, example, Queensland health payroll disaster, Australia, 2010 to 2020. Queensland replaced its legacy payroll system with an IBM-built solution using SAP components. The rollout failed catastrophically. Fixing it required a decade-long stabilization effort costing more than $1 billion, and a permanent lesson in the price of stickiness. The big picture? Coconut deals end at purchase. Sticky deals begin at purchase. Procurement isn't just the act of buying, it's the act of owning the consequences of what you buy. The more moving parts, the more software, the more integrations, the more promises involved, the stickier the deal becomes. Spotting that stickiness early is the difference between a clean transaction and a cautionary headline. Stay thirsty, my friends.